The Raiders are back at Allegiant. Can they bounce back against Cam Ward and the pesky Titans? NFL Network's Cameron Wolfe breaks down the matchup. Plus, Raiders analyst Lincoln Kennedy tells us how Geno Smith can get back on track. And rookie running back Ashton Jeanty sits down to talk breakout games, his Halloween stance, and much more. The Silver and Black Show starts now. Welcome into the Silver and Black Show. I'm Amber Theoharis. The Raiders need a win, and a few weeks ago, the Titans looked like the perfect team to get one against. But the Titans are coming off a gutsy come-from-behind win over the Cardinals last week. One where this year's #1 overall pick, Cam Ward, had a career high in passing yards. So this is anything but an easy matchup. But if the Raiders want to salvage this season, they need to find a way to stop letting turnovers and big plays dictate the game. So how can they do it? Let's say hello to our first guest, NFL Network reporter, Cameron Wolfe. And Cameron, we always love having you on. Thanks for joining us. Both teams are sitting at 1-4. So what are you going to be looking for early in this matchup on both sides?
Yeah, what the quarterback play is. Let's just start there. Both of these quarterbacks have struggled out of the gate, Geno Smith and Cam Ward. Obviously, Cam Ward, they got their first win last week in an improbable way, but which quarterback can take care of the ball earlier? Who has that spark coming through? I think the Raiders are favored in this game because they have the more talented group, but we haven't seen it in recent weeks. And so which quarterback can be settled down is probably the first thing I'm looking at.
I think when you say more talented group, you think about guys like Max Crosby in the defense. The Titans have a bottom two offense. Cam Ward, as we're talking about him, he's the most sacked quarterback in the NFL right now. Do you think it's going to be a mismatch with this Raiders pass rush?
Yeah, it sets up to be, like you said, and you're open, right? But the thing that the Titans will look at as a benefit is J.C. Latham, their high drafted tackle. It sounds like he's going to have a good chance to return. That should help them out. He's been out for some time with the injuries. But that being said, Max Crosby, I take him against any of those offensive linemen. And so if they can get off and get those pass rush opportunities, that's the real key. They could have a big win there. They just can't fall behind early like they did against Indy, because then Max Crosby can't pin his ears back and rush the passer.
That's a great point, too, because when they fall behind, they can't run the football as much, and I think Ashton Jeanty is going to be the key. Going back to the Titans' offense, Calvin Ridley, though, he's riding a high. He had 131 yards in the last game, so him and Cam Ward are kind of finding their stride together. What do you think will be the key for the Raiders' secondary limiting him?
Yeah, I think Calvin Ridley needed a little bit of a confidence boost, just like the Titans did. They were really struggling to find that chemistry together. But in that game, really after that big Cardinals fumble, you saw Cam just kind of let loose. And that really is what they saw in training camp, that they've been trying to unlock that natural chemistry where it doesn't feel forced, doesn't feel rushed. Now, the Raiders are really going to have to get their hands on Calvin Ridley at the line of scrimmage. That's been an area where he's really struggled, and that's where teams have got him off his game early. If they can do that, then they can have success against him in that passing game.
I'll tell you, it's pretty easy to pinpoint what the Raiders' issues have been, and it's turnovers and then special teams gaffes have really killed them, and they've put a lot of pressure on the defense. I wanted to throw this stat out there that I couldn't believe. The average starting field position for the Raiders' opponents this year is the 38-yard line. 38-yard line. That is the worst since 2000. That doesn't give anybody much of a chance to defend. So how does Geno Smith get back on track? How does he match up with this Titans secondary and not turn the ball over?
Yeah, you got to trust your playmakers. And for me, it starts with Ashton Jeanty. You drafted him that high for a reason. I really like when they got him into the backfield and used him in the passing game. That's where he can get into space. You know, some of the struggles they've had with their offensive line, it's been tough for Ashton to get started. I like when they put him on the edge, whether it's with the deep carries on the outside zone or the little screens outside. Get him with a head of steam where he can make moves, run people over in the open field. That's an easy way to get Geno comfortable early in the game is run the ball in different ways. It's not always your power, your ISO. It's getting the ball to your back in space. And that's what I hope to see. And when we've watched this Titans team, when they've had to face really talented running backs in space, they've struggled. And so I think that's an advantage the Raiders can take advantage of.
Yeah, it's the reason why they're the third worst defense, run defense in the NFL right now. So it really could be an advantage for Ashton. red zone right now is an issue on both ends for the Raiders. How do the Titans match up inside the 20s?
Yeah, they've struggled just like in a lot of areas they've played with. So it's going to be the get right game for one of these two teams. And I think that one thing I would avoid on the offensive side if I was the Raiders is we talked about that outside space. A big reason why is the Titans' best defender, really the only guy you got to focus on avoiding on their defense is Jeffrey Simmons, their big defensive tackle in the middle. He's a game wrecker there. They move that pocket with Geno Smith. They get outside in space with Ashton Jeanty, get the ball out to their playmakers on the edge. I think that's how they win. And so that's including the red zone. You got to look for your playmakers on the edge instead of the middle of the field. I think that's the recipe for victory.
Third down last week for the Raiders defense was pretty rough. They gave up 80% conversion rate on third down. What do you think the key will be to getting the Titans off the field on third down? Who do you think they need to focus on and contain?
Yeah, it's got to start with Calvin Ridley. He was their guy when they needed that catch, when they were coming back from behind. This offense, Titans offense at its core, wants to be centered around their running back, Tony Pollard. The problem they've had, just like the Raiders, is they've fallen behind so often they haven't been able to establish that run. So early on, number one priority would be stopping Tony Pollard because when he gets going, he could be really good. But then if the Raiders get a lead and get Max Crosby attacking, then it's like I said earlier, get the hands on Calvin Ridley at the line of scrimmage, be able to get some pressure on Geno Smith off the edge and make those guys, on Cam Ward off the edge and make him uncomfortable because we've seen it early on in the season that he plays sometimes like a rookie. And when he gets uncomfortable, he makes mistakes. He turns the ball over. Even in their win last week, he had a couple of turnovers. You've got to get Cam to a place where he feels like he's got to escape that pocket. He's got to move those feet quicker. And that comes through that pressure off the edge, stopping the run early. So Tony Pollard in the first half, Calvin Ridley when they're ideally up in the second half.
All right, that's a good plan. We don't talk enough about the absence of Brock Bowers. It's like you almost forget who's not out there at times. But are people underestimating the impact Brock Bowers being out has on what Chip Kelly wants to do and what the original plan for this offense was?
Absolutely. I talk to people around the league on a regular basis, and the thought was that Brock Bowers could establish himself as the best tight end in football this year. Like there was that much respect for him, and he still has a way to get to that path. This injury just sidelines it a little bit. And look, you have a knee issue. It's frustrating. They're doing the right thing by sitting him and helping him get fully healthy, but you can't watch last week and not see the impact of Brock Bowers. You don't score 6 points if you have Brock Bowers on the field because of just one, the threat that he makes for the defense and opens up for everyone else, but also just how much emphasis you put your offense through him. He's your number one receiving target. He's all reliable on the areas you talked about, third down, red zone, areas they struggled in. Brock Bowers is your cure for all of that. And so, look, Chip Kelly will probably tell you, hey, next man up. That's easier said than done when the next man is not Brock Bowers. So they're going to be happy to get him back. They'll just have to figure out how to survive this week because that's a huge hole in this offense.
I think that's one of the worst cliches. I've said this a couple shows. One of the worst cliches in the NFL, next man up. If the next man up is not all pro, it does make a difference. It does make a difference. Anyway, all right, give me a bold prediction for this game.
I think Ashton Jeanty goes for over 150 total yards in this game, and they win by double digits against the Titans. I think this is a get-right game for the Raiders. I think this is an opportunity for them to really get back to the physical style that I know they want to have, and to me, that starts with Ashton Jeanty. So that's my bold prediction, and I'm sure Raiders fans hope I'm right.
Yeah, Cameron Wolfe, new favorite reporter voted by Raider Nation going forward now. Thanks a lot, Cameron. We appreciate your time.
Appreciate you.
All right, thanks for stopping by. Coming up, he always gives it to you straight. Raiders analyst Lincoln Kennedy tells us how the Raiders begin to climb out of this 1-4 hole next on the Silver and Black Show.
At Cox, we're always a step ahead. There you go. I'll show you. Like, before your basement became Movie Central, we made sure you'd have strong Wi-Fi, even down here. And you can rest easy knowing the price of your plan won't go up for 3 years. Guaranteed. See? He's looking out for you, and so are we, with advanced security that blocks threats on your network. Good boy. Whatever the future brings, Cox will keep you a step ahead. Oh.
Every year, millions fly with us at Allegiant because together, we go places. We see old friends. and try new things. We laugh. We really like to laugh. And reconnect. We remember. And we wander, which leads to wonder. From how we go to where we go to what we do when we get there, we go further together.
Is there something more fabulous? I need something to chase, something to melt this face. I need Las Vegas. It's too much and never enough. Oh, welcome to fabulous. It's spectacular, outrageous, impossible stuff. You'll stop and yell, welcome to fabulous.
How about totally obsessed? We created a cocktail that requires 7 unique ingredients. The most important one, 1800 tequila. Just as obsessed with taste and quality as we are. The world's most awarded tequila, proudly poured at the world's best bar.
The Silver and Black Show is brought to you by Cox, proud partner of the Las Vegas Raiders. Allegiant, the official airline of the Raiders. Low fares, nonstop flights, only at Allegiant.com. Victory Live, connecting the world of live experiences. And by 1800 Tequila, official partner of the Raiders. Taste is everything. Please drink responsibly. The Raiders have a lot of work to do as they head back to Allegiant to take on the Titans. How do they get back in the win column? Raiders analyst Lincoln Kennedy joins us now to break it down. And Lincoln, I love it. You always give it to us straight. So I was excited to talk to you today. Look, we all thought that the Raiders would get out to a better start than they did. Yeah. But the reality is they're 1-4. They're at the bottom of the AFC West. What is the number one thing you want to see change against the Titans Sunday?
Any type of consistency out of any phase of the game. I mean, here's the thing, Amber, coming into this season, I didn't expect the special teams to be a concern, and injuries and inconsistent play have caused that. Kind of knew where the defense was. It was the offense was my biggest question mark, and this offensive line. Now, all the problems have made themselves exposed themselves throughout the season so far. The Raiders need to turn things around, but they have to find a way to have consistency out of all 3 phases in the game. And I go back to the New England game. That's the closest that we had, and that's the only one that they have a win at. I mean, even when they've seen flashes, the defense will play well, offense comes alive. They haven't been consistent. So the biggest thing I'm looking for in the Tennessee Titans is against the Tennessee Titans is consistency.
I'll tell you what I'm looking for. Protect the football. The turnovers are just such a problem. It's no secret. 2 games in a row now, Geno Smith has thrown multiple interceptions and 0 touchdowns. How does he clean this up?
Well, he's got to have more confidence in the throws that he wants to do. And I think that's short. Intermediate to long, I think where he gets into rough water is because he's taking chances. Sometimes those safeties are drifting over the top. Sometimes they're fooling him because he wants to try to take that big chunk. I've tried to get back to more of a short or intermediate passing game to see if they can wake his arm up, if they will. But much to your point, Amber, and you're absolutely right. You got to stop taking chances. Got to stop taking risks because the rewards don't outweigh the risk, and the interceptions are becoming quite costly.
Geno also, though, to be fair, he was sacked 4 times, including 3 in the red zone. That really hurt. We know Colton Miller's out. That's just something they're going to have to deal with. How can this line give Geno Smith a better chance?
Run the ball.
That's as simple as it. Or throw it to Ashton down the backfield.
A running game is a quarterback's best friend, Amber.
That's
a running
true.
game is a quarterback's best friend because it takes all the pressure off. If you can get production on 1st and 2nd down and make 3rd down manageable, you have a better chance of being successful. So it goes back to the preliminaries, the basics. Run the football.
Ashton Jeanty really has gotten into a rhythm. He went from averaging 3 yards a carry in weeks 1 through 3 to 5.7 in the last 2 games. What have you seen from the run block in the last couple of weeks that's different or from him?
I think they've started to form some staple runs. in their arsenal. And what I mean by that is that every offense I ever played on, we had a handful of runs that we knew that we could call. No matter the down, no matter the place on the field, we could call, we would get production. And I think the Raiders need to develop that. That's what happens when you have a new offensive coordinator, a new scheme, and all these other new players come in. You have to develop tendencies and strengths. The Raiders aren't there yet. I mean, they've still been trying to piece it together. But I will say this, I think it's going to continue to be running back by committee in that room. So it's good to see Raheem back, and I think he gives Ashton Jeanty a nice little spell. But the big thing is that they've got to define their staple runs, and I think they're starting to do that. It's hard because it hasn't translated into wins, but it's hard to say whether or not that's happened. But I do see that sort of tendency building there.
People do have to remember how young and new this offense is with a new offensive coordinator, a bunch of rookies out there. And look, everybody's just going to have to accept that Brock Bowers isn't available. He's not going to be there. What should the game plan be, knowing they will be without him?
Well, I still think you can open it up. You've got other playmakers that you can find a way to get the football. But I think at this particular point, because they are struggling in all three phases, it's a coaching point where you go back to the basics. Let's get back to the basics. What makes us work on all phases of the ball, offense, defense, as well as special teams, and get back to that. And look, the Raiders are going up this weekend against the Tennessee Titans. Wouldn't necessarily say a pretty good team or a good team. No, the Raiders have had their fair struggle, so I'm sure Tennessee's probably saying the same thing about the Raiders. They just got to get back to basics, and they've got to put some confidence out there by winning some football games, scoring some touchdowns, winning some football games, and it starts. You can only do one at a time, so it starts this weekend.
And you feel like you just need to see some big plays. All the big plays have been from the other team recently. We need those momentum-changing plays. Pete Carroll sat down with our friend JT the Brick, and he said that Jack Besh and Dante Thornton Jr. are both really good rookies, is what he said.
Right.
Do you think we'll see both rookies get some more targets in the passing game Sunday?
You know what? I have to be leery of speaking on that, Amber, because there's only one football. So if we're talking about Ashton Jeanty, if we're talking about playmakers, obviously you want to get them to your playmakers at many times. The problem ultimately this offense has had all this season, if you look at the numbers, haven't had a lot of total offensive snaps. It's hard to spread around the football when you're only getting the football like 50 times a game, which is, in my opinion, unheard of. I never heard of a number that low as far as, hold on to football. The Raiders have way too many 3-and-outs in their history so far in this part of the season. They got to find a way to sustain drives. There's an opportunity to get the football to some of the other notable players like you were talking about, but there's only one football. So you've got to find a way to put drives together, and most importantly, you've got to find a way to come alive in the red zone so you score touchdowns rather than having to settle for threes.
Yeah, I would like to see Jacoby Myers get back in the mix more too, as well as a rhythm with him, maybe before.
Trey Tucker's having a pretty good season so far.
Exactly,
too.
Before the rookies. Yeah, maybe use them as kind of a surprise, down the field, Dante Thornton perhaps, but I would like to see Jacoby just be consistent. Let's talk defense. Jermaine Pratt was released on Monday. How do the Raiders, like you mentioned, we've seen these flashes. I go back to the Bears game where the Raiders defense played so well. How do the Raiders get back to bringing that same pressure that we saw in that game?
Well, Patrick Graham's defense, the strength of its defense is predicated on getting a pass rush. So that's why the Condor, Max Crosby, is out there. But he's going to be double teamed and triple teamed. So someone else has got to have to rise up. The issue becomes now with this sort of turmoil in the secondary with the injuries and everything else. The issue becomes now, can the Raiders afford to play man to try to blitz to get pressure on opposing quarterbacks, or do they sit back in zone and trust their rushing four will get there? That's anyone's game. And that's where it goes back to the inconsistencies I was speaking of earlier. The Raiders have got to get a pass rush, absolutely. But they can't run the risk of blitzing to get that. Because if they run the risk of blitzing to get that with this secondary, the way that it's been playing so far, it might get exposed. And we just don't know that right now. So it's still too early to say. And I know a lot of people, Raider Nation, a lot of people watching this program are sitting there like, man, I want some answers. It's not that simple when you talk about all these new pieces. The biggest thing that I got out of the Pratt release was the fact that special teams was coming in to be a strength. It's not a strength. They need to find a way to right that. So they're going to make roster changes for the benefit. Back when I played, Amber, starters didn't like going on special teams. it's essential these days, in my opinion, the way things are. So we've got to find a way to sort of solidify special teams, to make that a strength and no longer a weakness. I think that will help out the defense. I also think will help out the defense if you get some other people in that defensive line to get to the quarterback. It's that simple.
And they have guys that can do it. You mentioned the secondary and, being a little nervous when you have to go to man or blitzing. The Raiders secondary does need to step up. They are the 4th worst defense in the NFL when it comes to opponents' passer rating against them. They're giving up a lot of passes. What is your overall assessment of just that unit?
Well, you've got a very young, inexperienced unit in a lot of ways. There's Blue Kelly, who's getting his legs up under him. But they're going to have to try to figure out the right combination, because especially with Gordon being banged up, and that leaves me concerned about this secondary. This secondary can't really afford to take any hits injury-wise. They got to have all hands on deck to try to play this Patrick Graham style of defense. And going up against opposing offenses in the future, I mean, look, you got to be able to play man. You got to be able to play zone successfully. And the safeties have got to do better in covering space. So there's a lot of adjustments that need to be made for this defense to be more effective. But they've shown signs of it at the pass, of being able to shut down. We go back to that Charger game, being exposed very early and backed up in your territory and only giving up a field goal, playing the level they did and the level that we've seen throughout the year. So it's possible. They just need to put it all together and consistently and get a win to help build confidence that you're doing something right, rather than going back to the drawing board every time you get a loss. Like, okay, let me scratch my head and figure out what we're doing wrong now.
That's a good point. Finish the sentence. The Raiders will win if.
The Raiders will win if they can force 2 turnovers.
I like it. Take away the ball. That would be a nice change. All right, Lincoln, we always appreciate you stopping by. We'll see you out there.
Always a pleasure, Amber.
Thanks. All right, coming up, what's allowing the Raiders rookie running back Ashton Jeanty to find his groove? We ask him one-on-one next.
At Cox, we're always a step ahead. There you go. I'll show you. Like, before your basement became Movie Central, we made sure you'd have strong Wi-Fi, even down here. And you can rest easy knowing the price of your plan won't go up for 3 years. Guaranteed. See? He's looking out for you, and so are we, with advanced security that blocks threats on your network. Good boy. Whatever the future brings, Cox will keep you a step ahead. Oh.
Every year, millions fly with us at Allegiant because together, we go places. We see old friends and try new things. We laugh. We really like to laugh. And reconnect. We remember. And we wander, which leads to wonder. From how we go to where we go to what we do when we get there, we go further together.
How about totally obsessed? We created a cocktail that requires 7 unique ingredients. The most important one? 1800 tequila. Just as obsessed with taste and quality as we are. The world's most awarded tequila, proudly poured at the world's best bar.
Is there something more fabulous? I need something to chase, something to melt this face. I need Las Vegas. It's too much and never enough. Oh, welcome to fabulous. It's spectacular, outrageous, impossible stuff. You'll stop and yell, welcome to fabulous.
Geno Smith rolls out to his left. He's got Jeanty in the flat, catches it at the 5, makes the turn, into the end zone. Touchdown Raiders! Ashton Jeanty, his first career receiving touchdown. To his right. The snap, straight drop off his back foot. Wheel route from Jeanty, caught it in the 30. Spins out of a tackle and he somersaults to the 43. To Ashton Jeanty, stutters the ball, and he's got the speed to the near side. Jeanty to the 30, breaks the tackle 20. Jeanty, gone! Deuces goodbye! Ashton Jeanty, a 64-yard touchdown!
Ashton Jeanty has definitely been a bright spot in the season for the Raiders, and he joins us now. It's good to see you. Last time I saw you was the draft. It's been a minute since then.
A little while, yeah.
Yeah, well, now you've had over a month in the NFL. What has been the biggest difference in playing in the NFL versus what you went through in college?
Yeah, I think the main thing has been the speed and, obviously the knowledge of players. Players are a lot smarter. And, running the ball, the holes close up faster. So you got to read and react at a higher level than I did at college.
I like for people in Raider Nation to get to know you because you are new to the team. And one of the things I think is pretty cool about you is that you played middle school football in Italy. Tell me how that happened and what was it like playing American football in Italy? Yeah, so it was actually my freshman year. So I played on the varsity team. It was a cool experience, getting to travel, play football, go to places like Spain, Germany. And the competition, it wasn't the best, but I definitely enjoyed, different cultures, trying new food, and obviously playing the game that I love. It was because your dad was in the Navy, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And what's your favorite food? What's your favorite culture over there?
Favorite culture over there? That's a hard one. Well, I'm gonna give it to the Italian food.
You have to, right?
Yeah, the pizza out there, top tier.
It's a little bit different, that's for sure, than here in the United States. It's pretty good. Who has helped you adjust the most in the Raiders locker room?
I feel like that's hard because so many guys have helped me, but I'm gonna stick with the running back room. I'm gonna shout out my dog Raheem Mostert. He's been a guy that's been in my corner since I got in here, and just giving me little nuggets here and there all the time, whether it's on the field, off the field. He's been a person that's been there for me to help me make this transition. Every
backfield is stronger with a 1-2 punch. What has it been like now that he's starting to come on? How has that helped your game as well?
Yeah, it's been great. It's always good, to get out the game and, you can relax knowing that the next guy coming in, he's going to keep the standard up and, there's no drop off.
That Bears game was fun to watch. That was a coming out party for you. And I know it was a tough loss. I know that's not what you guys wanted, but what was it like leaving Allegiant knowing that you kind of put the league on notice? You finally showed in the NFL what people knew you could do.
Yeah, it felt great. Obviously we want to end that off with a W, but the wins will come, but just being able to showcase my talents, my abilities, on the highest level week in and week out is always a great thing.
Back-to-back games now, over 100 yards from scrimmage. In that hype video, we saw you catching the ball out of the backfield. How much is that a part of your game, and how much is the fact that your number's being called to catch the ball as well, has that elevated what you're able to do these last couple of games?
Yeah, I think it's a part of my game that's, been overlooked, especially, last season, not really catching the ball at the backfield much. But it's always been an aspect of my game that's, been really good. And, I'm hoping to continue to build on that and, gain more opportunities to catch the ball at the backfield.
Yeah, we like seeing it. I also love seeing your Michael Myers stance. You went back to that. Coach Carroll seems to love it. What is the genesis of that stance? You look uncomfortable. Like you're standing straight up. So to most of us, you look uncomfortable, but you're very comfortable in it.
Yeah, I can't really explain it too much, but exactly that. That's how I feel comfortable, relax, I'll say more of in a Zen mode, just locked in.
How did you get the name Michael Myers?
Somebody had made like a post. It was me, and then me and then Michael Myers.
With the Halloween mask?
Yeah, and then it just blew up from there, and then everybody just started calling me that.
I think we know what your Halloween costume should be this year. I think we can pick it out.
I think there's only one thing that's right.
There's only one thing to go with. We've seen you compared to running backs that I covered and I'm friends with, LaDainian Tomlinson, MJD. Who are some of the guys that you modeled your game after growing up?
Yeah, a lot of guys. Even some that are playing right now. Marshawn Lynch, I just loved his physicality, his mentality of, not letting the first man tackle him. Derrick Henry, not the same size for sure, but just, his different weapons and tools, using the stiff arm, in his bag. But there were so many. Even, Christian McCaffrey, catching the ball, Alvin Kamara as well, being able to be a receiver and, run routes.
Looking at the matchup going up against the Titans this week, you're going to see Cam Ward. You guys were both Heisman Trophy finalists, and I know you saw him in New York back last year. Have you guys stayed in touch at all?
Not really, but you know, we're definitely cool. I mean, I got to meet him and his family, hang out, spend time with them multiple times. I mean, his dad and my dad have, you know, been in touch on a few different things. So he's definitely a great guy, a great competitor, and you know, I love seeing him do what he's doing, and I know he's going to continue to get better and be a great quarterback in this league.
Tennessee has not fared very well against the run. That's a good thing for you. How important, though, will just a bunch of carries and sustaining that ground game be, especially for you to get in a rhythm and take advantage of what could be a mismatch?
Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity, you know, to take advantage of. And, you know, as the carries come in and, you know, as an offense, you know, if we continue to just, you know, wear them down, it should be great results.
I know you said you like to, you know, you get a breather when Raheem comes in, but let's be real, you want all the carries, right? Like, you're a guy that seems like it doesn't matter how many they ask you to do, you would still be cool with more.
Yeah, I mean, however many they want to give me, I'm willing to do whatever it takes, you know, to help the team win.
Well, we like to see the ball in your hands, that's for sure. What do the Raiders need to do to get back on track, to leave Allegiant with a win on Sunday?
Yeah, continue to build on what we have. You know, continue to put, you know, coaches got to continue to put our players in, you know, the right positions to make plays, using their strengths and their abilities. And then we just got to come together. We got to continue to stay together, right? You know, when you get in a kind of a state of, you know, losing, and, you know, right now it feels like a storm and a rainy clouds over us, but, you know, the only way to get through a storm is to walk through it. So we got to walk through it together, and like I said, stay close, and continue to just build, and, you know, the wins are going to come. I know that for sure.
I can tell you, a one big play can pretty much change everything. So let's start out the game with a nice 60-yard run like you had against the Bears. That'd be a good place to start.
That might make it easy. You know?
Yeah. Ashton, thanks so much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you out there against the Titans and getting the win for the Raiders.
Yeah, thank you.
Coming up, a long overdue celebration for one of the greatest to ever do it. And one last thing, next.
How about Totally Obsessed? We created a cocktail that requires 7 unique ingredients. The most important one, 1800 tequila. Just as obsessed with taste and quality as we are. The world's most awarded tequila, proudly poured at the world's best bar.
Is there something more fabulous? I need something to chase, something to melt this face. I need Las Vegas. It's too much and never enough. Oh, welcome to fabulous. It's spectacular, outrageous, impossible stuff. You'll stop and yell, welcome to fabulous.
Every year, millions fly with us at Allegiant because together, we go places. We see old friends and try new things. We laugh. We really like to laugh. And reconnect. We remember. And we wander, which leads to wonder. From how we go to where we go to what we do when we get there, we go further together.
At Cox, we're always a step ahead. There you go. I'll show you. Like, before your basement became Movie Central, we made sure you'd have strong Wi-Fi, even down here. And you can rest easy knowing the price of your plan won't go up for 3 years. Guaranteed. See? He's looking out for you, and so are we, with advanced security that blocks threats on your network. Good boy. Whatever the future brings, Cox will keep you a step ahead. Oh.
Raider Nation, after last week's loss, we're back on it again. Week 6 against the Tennessee Titans. There are some opportunities for some big-time plays against their defense in the running game and the passing game. We're going to get to it right here. Against the Denver Broncos, a little guard counter action here. It's up to that running back to have great vision, great footwork, and be able to make guys miss here. We'll keep on rolling. Look at that. Bam, squeeze through. And this is an outstanding run, an outstanding finish by this young running back by the Broncos. We have a guy who can do all this. We'll look at it from a different aspect here. Again, we're going to have that guard. We're going to pull across the line. That running backs get to. We have the linemen get to the second level to provide that running back an opportunity to cut back against the grain. We see the arrows go in front, but he's going to go behind that tackle, and then the ability to be able to make guys miss and finish with an explosive play. We have the guy who can do that. We have the lineman who can do that. I expect our offense to be able to get some big chunk plays in the running game. Now we're going to go back to the Rams and the Titans game a couple weeks ago. This is how we're going to make big plays in the passing game. We're going to get that motion here. We're going to freeze it. These guys are going zero blitz. That means everybody is blitzing, and if you're not blitzing, you have someone man-to-man. We have an outside release by our receiver up top. He's going to give him a little stick and go, beat him, stack him on top. The quarterback's going to make a really good throw here. We have all the capabilities, the personnel, to be able to get this done.
The Silver and Black Show has been brought to you by Cox, proud partner of the Las Vegas Raiders. Allegiant, the official airline of the Raiders. Low fares, nonstop flights, only at Allegiant.com. And by Ticketmaster, the official ticket marketplace of the Las Vegas Raiders and the NFL. Time now for one last thing. This Sunday at halftime, my colleague and dear friend Eric Allen will be honored at Allegiant as we celebrate his inclusion into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Eric became the 31st Raider to be inducted into Canton this past August and will be joined this weekend by fellow Hall of Fame alumni Charles Woodson, Marcus Allen, Eric Dickerson, and Tim Brown.
It wasn't that he was so fast and so strong, but he had a combination of both, right? He had the strength and he had the speed, but he was a smart guy. He knew how to play the position. He knew how to play you. He would play me different than he would play Jerry Rice, So it's when you see a guy who is studying the game like that and studying us the way he studied us for training camp, you know this is a guy that's going to play at a very high level, and certainly he did.
Eric was part of the Raiders teams that went to the AFC Championship in 2000 and the playoffs in 2001. But 1993 was a standout year when he returned 4 interceptions for touchdowns. It was a record that stood for 30 years. NFL MVP Rich Gannon saw EA's dominance firsthand.
I played against him. I played against him when he was in Philadelphia. I know how difficult a player he was. He went to New Orleans. But when he came to the Raiders, I competed against him every day in practice. I know. I had Jerry Rice out there. I had Tim Brown out there. And I just saw these guys. It was hard for us to get completions in practice. So I know what type of player he is. I know what type of leader he was, what type of teammate, and most importantly, what type of person he is.
Eric Allen represents all that Al Davis stood for. Just win, baby. And this weekend, EA's celebration will be a reminder of the standard that was set by those who wore the silver and black. We hope you join us in honoring a great player and an even better man. That'll do it for us. It's Raiders-Titans from Allegiant Stadium. Kickoff is set for 1:05 p.m. Pacific. Make sure to catch Raiders game day right after the game. I'm Amber Theoharis. Have a great weekend, everyone.